Warning: the following podcast show that you're about to listen to will include explicit language and content in which you, the members of the audience, may find offensive. Audience discretion is advised.
Welcome to another episode of the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience.
Yeah, boy.
Where anything and everything is a subject matter on the show, and no subject matter is ever taboo.
Damn, that's what's up with you.
And now, your host with the most, Mr. Kim Hoang. Bro, am I getting paid for this?
Yo, what up, everybody? How you doing? This is your boy Kim Hoang, the Asian sensation, and we're back at it once again with another new episode and bringing more content here on the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience, coming at you live back home over in the Prototype Studio in Wheaton, Maryland. It is great to be back home. Shout out to all the people that while we were away, that you actually helped manage it. You took care of the place. Thank you. As you guys know, for the past couple of episodes, we were actually recording back at the place where it all started, at the Asian Sensation Studio. And it was great because there was like a lot of nostalgia. There was a lot of great memories. When we went back to the building, it was kind of like we were reminiscent of all the stuff that happened in that particular building that was once the Asian Sensation Studio. And to actually have those great memories come back definitely put a smile to my face. I wasn't crying about it though. I was definitely, appreciative, and I was smiling, and I was like, oh man, this was our control booth. This was our green room. This was this, and this was this. And the fact that, I guess, I just wanted to do a couple of episodes there at the Asian Sensation Studio to kind of have that nostalgia, to bring it back, and to, what a way to kind of open up the summer, if you will, than just to, do it where it all started. So I want to thank the owner of the building, which is formerly the Asian Sensation Studio, for allowing us some time to do a couple of episodes while he was away, and we really appreciate that time and that permission to record there. So it was really cool. And yes, it is the summertime, so welcome to the summer, home of hot weather, and at least in the DMV, unbearable humidity. So yeah, it's what it is, and we're here. Obviously, I want to go ahead and kick it off because there's a lot that I want to talk about. Some people might think it might be good. Some people may think it might be bad. Some might be questionable. It's whatever. We just create content. The only thing that I think that as podcasters can only request is that, hey, whenever you listen to any of our content, and I'm not talking about just my content, but as podcasters in general, if you listen to our content, no matter what we put out there, please listen to it with an open mind and an open heart. That's all that we ask. I feel like, sometimes people are too quick to shoot down something that they never hear about before for the first time. In this case, maybe it could be my podcast show as a general, not as per episode. And some people may judge too quickly on the content that I put out there, and I realize that maybe my content and my podcast may not be for everybody, but please give it a chance and give it an opportunity, and I assure you that you will not be led astray, and I assure you that at least for that moment in time, you could be like, okay, well, this guy is creating content and he's doing his best. So there you go. Recently, I actually conducted my very first seminar, which covered a lot about stage combat and basic stunt training. Now, this is kind of like, the equivalency of like preschool, like pre-K, kindergarten, and first grade type of stuff. We did a lot of empty hand combat training, stage combat training, so there were no weapons involved. basic stunt training, so we weren't jumping, off of like, a 1,000-foot building to dive into like, a blown up crash mat. You know what I mean? We were doing the basics of the basics. And I had told people before this seminar even happened that that's what the basis was, because the goal was that I wanted local film and stage actors along with aspiring stunt people to learn the basic empty hand stage combat principles, which utilized boxing and martial arts along with basic stunts that may be required for any and all acting projects, no matter the genre, whether if it's like action, comedy, horror, drama. At a certain point, no matter what movie it is, no matter what type it is, you will have some form of stage combat or a form of basic stunt or both involved in that film. And to me, it was very important to go ahead and educate all the actors and future stunt people out there about this type of situation, because having stage combat and basic stunts in movies are as common as knowing that water is the most healthiest thing that you can drink. You know what I mean? So it's basically common like that. And I felt like, when I wanted to do this, I wanted to do it the right way. I wanted to teach people who are willing to learn, because there's going to be some people out there that may know less than I do that are very interested. Or at least there might be some people that may know as much as I do, but they wanted to participate and learn from a different perspective and sharpen their tools even more so than, its current sharpness level. And that was really good. So when I actually put it together, I wanted to go ahead and advertise for it. And I did. I put it out there on a lot of social media, including Facebook, Instagram. I put it on TikTok. I even did it old school where I made flyers and I went flyering, passing stuff out over at the University of Maryland College Park. I went over to Panera Bread and put it on, the event corkboard. I went over to Montgomery College in Rockville, Maryland, posted some stuff there, and even in their Tacoma Park campus. I went over to two acting, networking, events. One in Frederick, Maryland, at the Il Forno's restaurant, which is like an Italian restaurant. And then I went over to this one place over in downtown Silver Spring, which is not far from where I currently live, and just started flyering and promoting it out. I asked a lot of my friends to go ahead and promote it out there on their social media pages, and maybe a couple of club organization pages within Facebook that they belong to. And the word got out. It really did. And it was cool because we had a fair amount of people. I don't want to mention like numbers or anything like that, but we got some people that came in, and we finally got the first one in, which was really, really incredible. I was happy about it. I was like, wow, this is really dope. Example, one person came from Richmond, Virginia, which was about like 2 hours and maybe 20 some minutes of a drive to get over to the venue that I held it at, which was Kicked Up Fitness over in Annapolis Junction, Maryland. And real quick, shout out to my friend Sean Queen, who is the owner of Kicked Up Fitness, who allowed us the facility to actually conduct this seminar. So I really appreciate him, and I really appreciate his support. And we had one person, believe it or not, that came all the way from Port Arthur, Texas. And the fact that he came from Port Arthur, Texas, he was really interested. He got the word of the seminar, and he was like, "Yo, I wanna come and I wanna check it out." I'm like, "Dude, you are more than welcome to. I mean, if you can make the trip, and it's not gonna burn a hole in your wallet, that's really cool." We had one guy that actually was interested coming in from the Philadelphia, Pennsylvania area, because I dropped a flyer over at a martial arts store, which is out over in the outskirts of Philadelphia. It's actually more on the New Jersey side, Haddonfield, New Jersey. I dropped a flyer over at the martial arts supermarket store right over there, and they got the word of it. He wasn't able to come, but it definitely opened up a possibility that I might do a seminar over there in the Philadelphia area. So I'm really happy about that. But going back to the thing, it was great because, for 2 days on June the 27th, which was a Saturday, and June the 28th, which was a Sunday, we had people coming over, and it was great. And we trained and we learned and we went through a lot of things, a lot of basic, hand slaps, back slaps, and so forth, like they teach us in theater. We utilized a lot of basic boxing drills for punching, and we did some martial arts kicking, as well as just basic, falls and rolls and things of that nature that we did on safety mats. Which I had to go ahead and sanitize and clean those mats before each use. And let me tell you something. I'm glad that I did sanitize it. I got hot water. I used hot water and bleach because when I actually stepped on that mat for the first time, before the very first seminar, it was not properly cleaned. You can definitely tell there was a lot of feet moisture used from a lot of Brazilian jiu-jitsu, rolling, and kickboxing. And if they somewhat cleaned it, they didn't clean it properly. So I mopped it twice. There was 4 mats that we used, and I mopped it twice for each mat. Waited for it to be dried up, and then I used these industrial cleaning solution sheets that are very similar to the Clorox wipes. I used that, and I just wiped it over one more time for each mat just to make sure that everything was clean. And sure enough, it was a lot better. Hardly any type of moisture to none at all. So I knew it was properly sanitized. And for those that are in the martial arts school business, whether if you teach traditional martial arts or MMA or BJJ or Kung Fu or something like that, that wiping mats, cleaning mats, and sanitizing mats is a huge health protocol, because if you don't, somebody from the county or the state will actually ding you for that. They will penalize you for that, and you will have to pay a hefty fine for non-compliancy of proper cleaning and sanitation practices. So the fact that we got the mats, we cleaned it, we used it, we went over a lot of stuff. It was amazing and incredible, and I was very happy for the result. A lot of the people that participated were very happy that they took this course and they learned a lot. And what they thought of beforehand, they actually left with the fact that now they answered those questions and they have more information that they left with than they did before coming in. And I'm very proud and happy with all of those people that came out there, that made the effort to come out and to train and to have a good time and ask questions. If you guys are listening, I'm very proud of you guys. And if you ever need anything, contact me and let me know. Now, the new question is that a lot of people are wondering, well, because this event is now over, this seminar has now passed, what about the people that missed out? Because, we would like to take it as well. We just couldn't make it. And I've heard a lot of situations where there were certain people that were recovering from body injury, like a person that I knew, he was recovering from fractured ribs. One woman had back issues due to the fact that she was driving for hours, and it compromised her well-being of her back. Some people were recovering from being ill. Maybe they had a cold or a flu and they just didn't want to pass it out. And there were some people that couldn't make it because they already had something scheduled that day, something really important to them. and et cetera, et cetera. And look, guys, I definitely get it. Sometimes in life, we want to go to these awesome events, but there's just something that prevents us, whether if it's just like, again, like, there's an event that I got to go to that I already committed to, and I can't just ditch it. I gotta be at that event, or, the fact that somebody got injured. I get that. You want to make sure that your body's at 100%. You don't want to do this at 90% and then run the risk of being injured yet again, which will compromise your well-being even more and further injure your body a lot more. I get that. And the short answer of it all is that yes, I would love to bring this seminar back. I would love to do it sometime in July. And yes, it would be like a Saturday and a Sunday thing, because I feel like some people can do it on a Saturday, they can't on a Sunday. Some people can do it on a Sunday, but they can't on a Saturday. That's why I do it 2 days, because I want to make it a little bit more open for people and more available to people, so that they have a good opportunity to go ahead and do that. The thing about it is that I really want to think about how I would approach it this time than I would the last time. And I really am thinking about, honestly, I would like to have more people per day, because I feel like if I had an X amount of people per day, it would to me feel like it was a little bit more worth it. If I'm only teaching Y amount, I'm not complaining because they're there, but I would rather have the X amount. You know what I mean? I think that for each day, I might also have a limit of how many people can come. Because after training that first, seminar on those 2 days, I kind of underestimated a little bit about, spacing issues. So I want to make sure that, I can train, X amount of people, and do it right, so that we all can learn, but we're not congested in the space. You know what I mean? I think for the most, I probably might do 10 people at most. Maybe no less than about 6 or 8. Maybe 8, you know what I mean? Because I feel like 8, it is manageable. We could possibly do it. That said, it really depends on the people. I'm putting it out there for them because of the fact that they are interested in wanting to learn basic stage combat and basic stunt training. They want to be involved in it. They want to have that knowledge. But here's the thing, I can only offer it, but it is up to you to go through that door. If you don't go through that door and you don't get the knowledge, you can't complain about, I never got the opportunity. I provided the opportunity, and the opportunity is there. But if you didn't go through that door, no, that's the thing that you have to think about, and you might have to live with, unfortunately. But yeah, I'm willing to do it. I think it would be great. So why not? But, I digress. And you know what? This is a perfect time to take a break. When we come back, we will go into the second segment. Lots to talk about. So do what you need to do. Take a break. Come back. Because when you do, the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience will just rev up their engines and take off. Because that green light's coming and we ain't going to stop. I want to tell you about an amazing store that's really good for all musicians, music enthusiasts, and a whole lot more, which is Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center in Wheaton, Maryland. That's right, you heard it correctly. Since 1958, Chuck Levin's has been actually tearing up the game when it comes to the music scene. And guess what? Since 1958, they have been the store to go to and a must-visit destination for any serious musician passing through our nation's capital. So, if you're actually a person that's in a band looking for a new instrument, such as an electric guitar, an acoustic guitar, a bass guitar, or maybe some drums, if you're a DJ looking for like the greatest DJ equipment, such as turntables and so forth, they got you. Hey, are you actually in an orchestra playing a woodwind instrument, brass instrument, or strings? They got you. They got all the classical instruments that you need. And let's not forget, for all my fellow podcasters, need a microphone? They got you. Need a podcasting vocal track recorder? They got you. They got everything, man. And I'm telling you, it's the best place to go. So if you want to check them out, go ahead and do so, because right here at Chuck Levin's, they're the best. Forget the rest. Mess with the best. Located over at 11151 Veers Mill Road in Wheaton, Maryland. They're open Monday through Saturdays, 10 a.m. until 6 p.m. If you want to know more about what they have to offer, you can go over to chucklevins.com online or give them a buzz at area code 301-946-8808. Chuck Levin's Washington Music Center. Like I said before, don't worry about the rest. Mess with the best.
And now, back to the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience with your host, Kim Hoang.
There is a saying, a classic saying, and I actually have it written down on a post-it, but it's from one of my favorite movies of all time. The movie is called Casablanca, and there is a classic quote from the character Rick Blaine that is portrayed by Humphrey Bogart, and it says as the following: of all the gin joints in all of the towns in all of the world, she walks into mine. Kind of a little bit, familiar, right? Well, let me go a little bit more into detail. Say, for example, you're living your life, and this is for the fellas here, specifically, but it could be for the ladies too. Depends on the situation. So let me go ahead and bring it from the guy's perspective. Ladies, y'all can follow it and, kind of reverse it if you'd like to. But from a guy's perspective, fellas, imagine this, and I'm painting you a picture here. Let's say, for example, back in the day, you actually went out with a girl, right? You went out with the girl, you thought that she was really cool, you wanted to give it an opportunity. On the surface of things, it seemed like it would be a real good idea. And that, when you analyzed it, you noticed that it just seems like there were more pluses than minuses, more good pros than cons, you know what I mean? And when you think of it from that perspective, you just thought to yourself, hey, why not? Let's go for it. So you take a chance. You roll the dice, and for a moment in time, you and the girl are trying something. You guys are really making it happen, and that you guys are truly digging each other. You really like her, she likes you, things go well, and you think from that moment, wow, if it's going pretty good, if we're being honest with each other, if we really respect each other and we just like each other, hey, this might work. This might work and things might go very well. And then later on, for some weird reason, from, maybe something that's way beyond your thoughts, you don't know what's going on, you're under the impression that everything is cool, she ends it. You know what I mean? She ends it. And it's one of those things that, is very saddening to you. It's really hurtful. It breaks your heart. And it's one of those things that, it really took you for a blow. It really knocked you and rocked you to your core, 100%. And at that point, after that, it's like, man, I don't know if I can recover from this ever. And you're trying to be a little bit more logical about what happened and so forth. You try to tell her, later on down the line that it really hurt your feelings and so forth. But she's not really understanding that. She's being stoic. She's being cold. She's not just being regular cold like Steve Austin. She's being stone cold. And at that point, you feel like for a very long time in that department that all is lost in the world. To the point where I would say that you gave up right then and there, and you just want to kind of do your thing and just deal with it in any and every which way possible. Then, years later, as time passes and time progresses, you're not even communicating with her. You're not making any effort. You're just living your life, right? Then you get some kind of weird message. Could be a text message. Could be an instant message from like any social media like Facebook or, TikTok, Instagram, X, formerly known as Twitter. And then boom, she comes back into your life, so to speak. And then next thing you know, it's like, hey, I just want to tell you that I'm back in the world. And guess what? I live not far from you. At that point, you're just confused. Your jaw drops. You're asking a lot of questions. And at that point, it's like, holy freaking hell. You know what I mean? And I got to tell you, that is exactly what happened to me recently. Was it something that I expected? No, it definitely wasn't. Was it something that anybody in life saw happening? Not really. Now, for all intents and purposes, I'm not going to reveal the name of the person, because I feel like that's disrespectful. I don't want to put out any information unless I had direct permission to do so. But because I don't have direct permission to do so, I'm going to go ahead and, not disclose names. But for all intents and purposes, let's say that her name is Kat. All right, just so that we can go ahead and kind of mask the real identity. Kat is somebody that actually is a cousin of a friend of mine, and I knew Kat for a while because she would always come over to the Maryland area not only to visit my friend, but she has a brother that lives over in these parts. You know what I mean, in the DMV. So when I first met her, I thought she was like really cool. I mean, she was like, a young kid at the time, but she was really cool. She was nice. Very intelligent young lady, very beautiful young woman. I always felt like, talking to her, that it was like you're a young woman, but with an old soul. If that makes sense, young woman with the older soul. And to me, I that was just kind of like my way of complimenting her, that she's like beyond her years, you know what I mean? And I was like, wow, she is awesome, But I knew that, there's really nothing to it. We're just probably going to be people that we're going to be individuals that we see each other every so often from time to time, periodically. And, that was cool. You fast forward it to a few years later where she actually turned 18 and she graduated high school and or something like that. And I found out like, okay, cool, I can just go ahead and, kick it with her anytime that I wanted to if she's ever in the area. But I was invited by her brother to go ahead and go to down south, to drive over there and to celebrate her good fortunes and whatnot, which I did. And I think that's where it kind of started, where we started to really know each other a little bit better. As time progressed, and later on she became 21 and whatnot, I think what happened was I decided to go for it, and I was trying to be honest and so forth, and told her how I felt. And next thing you know, she was like, yeah, that's really good. That's good. It feels nice to actually be put in the front lines for once. And we kind of decided, let's just go for it. Let's see what happens. And at first it sounded pretty good. I think things are going pretty well because we were taking it step by step. And one time during that time frame, she said that she wanted to visit me. She wanted to come over to Maryland for a week, and she wanted to spend time with me. And I said, okay, well, that's pretty cool. We can definitely do that. And next thing you know, I just felt like things were kind of clicking and building in the right direction. We were laying the brick, brick by brick, and it was slowly we finally laid out the foundation, and now we're building our way up, and it's starting to look good. We're starting to build a building. It's great. It's wonderful. And throughout all that time, I really felt like I was doing the right things. I was being a gentleman. I was opening the doors for her. I was, trying to put her first, and and just have a good time and do the best that I can. And within that week, it felt like, in my opinion, that the relationship was getting a little bit strong. When she had left, I felt like, I was doing pretty good. Like I was doing the right things and winning the game and hitting the home runs. And I felt like it was awesome. Come to find out, maybe 2 weeks later, she just ended it. No rhyme or reason. You know what I mean? You could have said that it could be the long distance thing, and that could be somewhat, but I've seen and heard of relationships that even though it's long distance, that they do make it work. But for some reason, she just threw in the towel. And at that point, I just kind of felt like, man, I can't believe how cold-hearted she was, that she didn't even really think honestly about, my feelings and how I really felt and how I wanted to really make it work. And at one point, I really thought about relocating over the South for her to try to make it work, but it just, again, a real stone cold situation. And I think a year later after that, when I went over to see my friend get married over in the town where she lives in the South, we did bump into each other and we hung out. Not really, but we kind of hung out casually. And I tried to tell her, everything and so forth, and how I felt and how it really made me feel bad, and I felt really hurt about it. And once again, she just unfazed, just had no regard for everything, totally just, all the words that I spoke, it just went in one ear and went out the other and just incinerated it. So at that point, I just kind of knew at that point, man, there's no way in the world, and I just rather just, leave with my head somewhat held high and just say, what, it is what it is. And I remember from those years until now, it took a long time, because I remember venting a lot to a couple of friends of mine, and I remember that I had to go to therapy for it, and I remember that I had to go to a mental health support group because of how depressed I was about it, and how much anxiety and hurt and frustration that it was causing me because of the situation. You know what I mean? One thing I would laugh about is that the fact that when I told my one friend, Jonathan Henderson, and God rest his soul, about, to him, when I told him about the situation, he just said it flat out, like, man, she is just young and dumb, dude. The fact that, you guys have a 15-year, age difference. She's 21, and at that time, you're 36. Technically, you guys are adults. Hell yeah. So you're not going to get in trouble. But, she's young. She doesn't know what's going on. She has no idea what she wants. And the fact that she was doing that to you, and that she was very, cold-blooded about it and insensitive, she's just young and dumb. Brother, I feel bad that you went through that, but maybe it's just time to kind of concentrate on yourself and do what you need to do in order to get the right sense of healing, because you are a human, you are a person of self-worth. It is fucked up that she messed with your heart like that, and no, you did not deserve that. So for many years, it took me a while, and I was just trying to live my life again. And then all of a sudden, I get a instant message from the Instagram, and sure enough, it was her. And we ended up talking vocally on the phone 3 times. I called her the first time, she called me the other 2 times, and it was kind of like we caught up a little bit. And it was good to know that she's alive and well and so forth. But all that, residual hurt and all the feelings and everything just rose back. Because of all the places that she could be in, I didn't think that for a minute that she was back, and that she literally now lives about 25 minutes away from where I live, which is, wow. Like, I was just trying to be in a situation where I just wanted to be, I just wanted to heal, and I wanted to feel like I belonged in the world. And I didn't want to feel like, I was a weak person, or just, less than, what I am. Versus, how I really, felt worthless at that time, and how she made me feel worthless, how she made me feel with the, her ending the relationship, that I was less than, and I didn't belong, and made me feel like, I was like literally nothing in her life. You know what I mean? And all of a sudden she comes back. It's really weird. And I don't know how many people have gone through that, or gone through that same exact situation that I'm going through right now, but it is kind of, worrisome. It is scary. It's one of those things where it's like, what do you do? Where do you go? A lot of people have told me, because I after she called, I did talk to a lot of people. I talked to my godmother, who I love very much. I've talked to an uncle. I've talked to a cousin. I've talked to 2 friends. And, they pretty much, I would say collectively, they pretty much said the same thing about 85% of the time. Like, all the dialogue that each of them spoke, if you combine it to a grand total score of like all the answers in one test, all of them said about 85% of the same commonality thing, which is definitely a passing grade for sure. And I think a lot of people have said to the point, like, what, if you want to communicate with her, feel free. Obviously time has changed, between then and now. You guys are a little bit older now, so you guys have a lot of time since that moment, you know what I mean? And it's pretty much up to you to decide what you want to do. If you want to communicate with her, sure, do that. But number one, just be very respectful to her, which I think that I have for sure. But they also said at the same time, if you don't want to communicate with her and you want her to do all the communicating, that's your right, or you don't have to say anything to her at all. I mean, what you were feeling holds water then and it does now. You had every right to feel the way that you did, because you did invest your eggs in that basket, and you definitely spent time with her, and during that time frame. And it's like, you spent a lot of money and not get a good investment out of the deal. Instead, it blew up in your face. And I don't know, like, I really felt bad about the situation, and I still feel a little bit bad. Part of me does want to forgive her and just like truly move on. But it's like, I can't, because I still feel that residual pain. And at that point, I just feel like, what can I do? What is there to do? What can one do in order to, truly move on and to, get some kind of, I don't want to say, some peace and clarity, I guess. Because it stuff like this, I mean, I always thought like situations like this only happens in the movies, that it would never happen in real life. And then come to find out that this is real life. She did contact me, and now, all of the residualness of all the stuff that happened years prior, the anxiety, the depression and heartbreak and so forth, it's all coming back. It's collecting back like, back taxes. And I just don't really know. Should I, you would think that I should be able to let that go. And I think it's a little bit easier said than done. I do know that I am a human being, that I am wired differently. I feel differently. And I'm not going to be the same like every other individual. They can go ahead and go through the situation, the same exact situation that I did, and be cold and callous about it and say, you know what, that was just another girl in my life, I'm moving on. And unfortunately, I'm not that way. I know that, the shit still hurts. And, people wonder why sometimes men act a certain way about, women in that respect. Well, you're afraid to get hurt. We're afraid to get hurt too. And, at this point, I just don't really know what more I can do. Am I going to pray about it? Sure, if I can be religious about it for just 1 second, normally I shouldn't. But, yes, I would pray about it, and I would think about it, and I would meditate about it and see, what's going on. I definitely will say hello and be nice to her, but I don't know. Now it's like, hey, we should hang out for coffee, and we should go out from, hang out together, go to the movies and all this stuff and whatnot. When I'm like thinking, well, wait a minute, you got a boyfriend. Well, you can meet my boyfriend too. Whoa, wait a minute. I don't want to do all that. I just want to live life, and I want to be at peace. And I don't want the past to just hurt me again. There's always, it always happens to a certain person, not just me. But, when people dig up on the past and mention the past, it can hurt. And it can have a traumatic experience. And it can be a situation where, like, man, I just can't believe this shit is fucking happening. I was doing so well. I was living my life. I was healing and heading into the right track. And here we are. So, what am I going to do specifically? I don't know. But I'm hoping that in the end, things will happen in the way that it should. And things will happen in the way that, maybe Mother Nature would have intended. And we'll see. I don't know. I don't really have anything else to say anymore. I don't have much to say after that. We're going to take a little bit of a break. When we come back, you know what time it is. You know what we're going to do. So do what you need to do, but come back and stay tuned. More on the way with the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience. In life, we all want to have great health and excellent physical fitness. However, it's never given, only earned. That said, if you want to go to a gym that will help you to get there, then look no further than Kicked Up Fitness at National Business Parkway in Annapolis Junction, Maryland. Their mission at Kicked Up is to provide the ultimate functioning training facility that focuses solely on your success, with a diverse team that's highly qualified and dedicated to taking your fitness goals to the next level. Kicked Up also offers a variety of group classes and personal training programs that provide something for everyone, regardless of your fitness level. They believe in working hard, achieving results, all while having fun. So come visit their facility in person, which is located at 114 National Business Parkway, Suite 100 in Annapolis Junction, Maryland, 20701. Now, if you see my friend Sean Queen, who's the owner of Kicked Up, tell him that Benny Chow of Miscalculated sent you, and he'll hook you up with a complimentary 7-day pass just to try it out. Need more info? Give him a call. 410-888-9066. Email them at kufitnessnbp@gmail.com or visit them at their website at www.kufitnessnbp.com. Kicked Up Fitness. Never given, only earned.
And now, back to the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience with your host, Kim Hoang.
All right, everybody, welcome back. So we've come to the portion of the podcast where it's almost the end of the road. That being said, let me go ahead and read our disclaimer that the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience is asking for help on a voluntary basis to anyone out there that would like to assist our podcast show by the ways of sponsorship and / or financially donating to our podcast show to help make the quality of our podcast better. Any and all proceeds / money that we raise will go to getting more equipment and better equipment that we need for our podcast. Such equipment like microphones for in-studio guests, XLR cables that are required for those type of microphones, headphones for our in-studio guests, and believe it or not, a MacBook Pro. That's right, the official computer of the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience. When you hear every episode, that was actually edited by GarageBand, which is used exclusively on a Mac system, whether if it's a MacBook Pro, a MacBook, a MacBook Air, iMac, even like a Mac Pro. Those are them type of computers that really get the job done, so that when you hear our podcast, it is crisp, clear, concise, and wonderful. You know what I mean? Now, whatever you're willing to donate, no matter what the amount is, we appreciate it. So insert the joke. If you want to donate $5 million, I don't think that anybody would want to do that, but you never know. And if you did, heck, we would appreciate that. And we would even make you an executive producer to as little as $5. Every little bit helps. And, we would appreciate your help, the assistance, anything that you can. To make a donation, you can do it at the following. If you have PayPal and or Venmo, you can go ahead and make a donation under my tag name, which is at Kim Hoang MD Actor. That's once again at KIM HOANG MD ACTOR, or on Cash App, which our tag name is the $ Kim Hoang MD Actor, which is once again $ KIM HOANG MD ACTOR. And that's that. and the moment of truth, the main event, the stuff that you guys have been waiting for. We have dun 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 dun. That's right, ladies and gentlemen. We have our Q&A session. We have questions where you ask it and I will answer it. Normally we do have 7 regular questions, but we also include bonus questions. So we have 3 bonus questions along with our regular 7, which makes it a grand total of 10 questions. And I will do my very best. The only issue that we have for today is that I was given these questions, but they're just questions. It doesn't list who actually sent me the question and where they're coming from. It's just a question, and then there's a question, and then there's a question. So, that said, I want to apologize in advance because I know there's some people that are wanting to hear, the name of the person that dropped that question and where they reside. I think for this one time and this one time only, we're going to forego that. That's fine. We'll still answer the questions and everything. It's just that it's going to just be kind of generic in the sense that it's just questions, but no identity of the person and where they're geographically from. So if you're cool with it, which I know I am, I'm just going to go ahead and get started. So let's get this thing rocking and rolling, man. Let's pop it off. Excuse me. I just had to have a little bug in me. So let's do it. Question number 1. Kim, if I was hired as an actor in a film production and I felt uncomfortable knowing that I had addressed my grievances and issues with the director and producers, can I leave the film project? In my opinion, if you did air out all your concerns and all your grievances to the right channels, i.e. the director and the producers and the executive producers and anybody that has position, yes, legally you can. You can leave the film project. You can just go ahead and say to the director and the producer that, hey, this isn't working out because I addressed my problems. It's serious problems. It's serious concerns that I have. You have not addressed it or done anything within your power and your passion and whatnot. You've done nothing to help me out here. And because I'm feeling uncomfortable and because certain things aren't going the way that I want it to, and because of the fact that I've been talking to you about it, you have made no effort to talk to me back about it, I just need to leave. And I think sometimes, just leaving sometimes, it's probably for the best for certain situations and what have you, because it'll give you a peace of mind knowing that you're not wasting any more of their time, especially yours. And they're probably thinking, okay, well, another actor is gone, but it's one person that would not potentially cause any trouble or dramatics our way. So legally, again, you can leave the film project if you wanted to. It's just the moral part, but that's more for another discussion on another episode. So question number 2, Kim, I'm a person that loves the martial arts and formally trains in Taekwondo, but my hefty work schedule, it is really hard to come into the studio and train consistently. Any advice? Man, you actually hit a real good one, because that's almost as similar as what I've been doing. I with my day job, being a working man, working 5 days a week, Monday through Friday, and a lot of hours. Sometimes it is hard. It is really hard. And normally what I would do is I would stay in communication with all my instructors and let them know that, life is basically took over for a while, and you're not going to quit. It's just that you do have to put work first, because you have to make a living. You have to pay bills, and you have to pay that martial art tuition cost, which is now these days it costs a very pretty penny. And also what I would do is that whenever you have free time, to implement your training. I've been known that during my lunch break, I do train, and I try to fit that in religiously as much as possible. And I think that does help, like whether if I'm on my lunch break, whether if it's like, I'm at home and it's almost near the end of the day, want to work on forms. Sometimes like, when you have that moment where it's like a Saturday or Sunday and you want to go ahead and just train, knowing that you have free time, do it, The most important thing is just trying to be consistent, in training with whatever time that you have. And again, if you talk to your instructors, they might give you some great advice about like what you can do going forward, how to maintain your training and how to work around the busy work schedule. Their job is that they want to see you succeed and do well and see you grow within the art. And I think any good teacher would do that for you. Question number 3. Kim, is working as a tour manager for a promo tour a great experience? Not only is it a great experience, but it's an awesome opportunity. When I actually did tour managing for the first time as an assistant tour manager, I never really understood what, opportunities were out there in the promo industry. Because mind you, I was working a promo program where we were actually advertising for Philip Morris tobacco goods. And, every other BA had an opportunity to do something really cool. And I never really got my opportunity. And, when I got my opportunity, it just opened my eyes. Like, there's places outside of Washington, D.C. that are doing the same thing. There are great opportunities to, where you can actually work other programs and actually get compensated a lot more. There's a world out there where you actually work hard for, let's say, this client, and you're treated with such dignity and respect that you deserve. It is, a great experience in that way. And it's also a great opportunity because if you do really well, people look at you and they observe, they look at you and they're like, man, this guy's really good. He's great at what he does. We have to, keep him in mind for the next time. And, at that point, nobody's holding you back, and I feel like if you don't have that opportunity, you have to build that opportunity. If you don't get an experience like that, you have to create that experience. So, yeah, if you're close enough to a point where you can be a tour manager and get hired to do like a 4-month tour maybe or something like that, out, all over the United States and travel, and that the traveling expenses would be on the company dime, do it. Do it. You'll thank yourself later for the opportunity. It's good for the resume. And, what you'd be making, per week at least, is a lot more than what the average Joe makes here in the United States of America. So, yeah. Hope that you get that tour management position, or an assistant tour management position at least. And I hope that whatever it is that you're going through, that it'll disappear. So yeah. Question number 4, Kim, in your opinion, do you believe some people may not make it in the acting industry, and why? Well, the acting industry is really tough because there is a lot of competition. There are a lot of talented actors jockeying for the same position. And there are a lot of talented actors that act in a lot of genre of film, comedy, action, adventure, drama, horror, things of that nature. And it can be tough because there's a lot of rejection that's involved. And I think that with certain people, if you keep on getting rejected and you feel a certain way, you may not make it. Now, I'm not saying that you don't have the talent, and I'm not saying that you don't have the potential, but it is a common thing where, if you can't really hang in the acting industry with like tough leather skin, it's almost going to be impossible to survive in that area, in that arena. So if you are going into the acting industry, in the film industry, make sure you know what's involved, and that, with the possible consequences that you might face, that you're willing to still go for it, so. And that's my answer of the why, and why I believe that some people may not make it. Question number 5, Kim, what do you think about the Giannis Antetokounmpo trade to the Miami Heat? I think the Giannis thing was probably a long time coming. It just seemed that he really wasn't happy anymore with being with the Milwaukee Bucks. I mean, after he won that championship for them that one year, I kind of felt like the passion and the chemistry and, the desire to work with Milwaukee just kind of disappeared. Poof, out of thin air, gone. And I think that it's going to be a good opportunity for Giannis to play for another team, a team that has great history, winning history, championship history. And I think it's going to be a thing where, when he gets there, he will be utilized very quickly. There's going to be a lot of people that will see, what it is that Giannis is worth and what he's all about. And, I'm just looking forward to seeing, how his knowledge of the game will help the Miami Heat out in some capacity. So, yeah. Question 6, what has surprised you in this year's World Cup? Well, as we're recording right now, the one thing that I can just say is that, number one, I was really shocked, and I think I probably answered this question before, but just the fact that we've had a lot of ties this year, in this season of the World Cup. There were a lot of ties, a lot of countries who I thought that would go all the way to like at least the semifinals or even the quarterfinals didn't make it. Like, I thought Brazil had a very good chance of getting there. I thought that Portugal had a good shot for sure. I'll even go as far as I thought that our boys in the United States would go all the way, because they were commercialized to be like this really good team, and individually they're talented, and you see the morale, and you see a lot of people chanting for USA and bringing that passion back. And yeah, the fact that, they got as far as they did, and that's probably one of the best showings that they ever had in the World Cup, completely shocked me, but in a good way. So in that respect, I feel like, man, USA can only go up from here, but they got a lot of planning and strategizing to do between now and the next World Cup within the next 4 years. Question number 7, and then we'll go to the bonus rounds questions, which is now question 7. When do you know that it's time to end an activity that you love to do? I'm going to answer it like this, and I'll use specifics. I love podcasting, and I love podcasting because it has been the one creative medium that I felt like for some time that I have a passion for it, and I do it religiously, and I invested a lot into podcasting, albeit whether if I invested financially to buy the equipment that I have and that I'm currently using. And to me, I feel like, when you wake up every day and you just talk about it, and you can tell by the passion behind your tone, that's a good thing. Now, when you're just, you're not there anymore with it, when you have like little to no passion about it, and you keep talking negative things about it, that's usually when it's time to kind of end the relationship and to end what you're currently doing with that, activity. It's because it just shows that given the behavior that you're displaying, that's probably it. That, you got nothing more to offer, you got nothing more to prove, and it happens. I think it happens a lot commonly than people may know and realize. So, if you are really thinking about the fact that it might be the end of something that you love, I would sit down and really talk about it, or in this case for you specifically, when you're alone, I would sit down, think about it, and go into a deep thinking process of like what's happening, what's going on, because maybe you're just having a bad day and you just need some time off. If that's the case, take time off, and and then when you're ready, come back and reassess. But if it's to the point where you're just done with it completely, that's just when you know. So yeah, I hope that whoever asked this question, that they don't quit on it forever, because it would be a kind of like a tragedy if you did. All right, bonus question time. So here we go. Question number 8. Kim, we heard that you recently got a video camera. How is it going, and how you implement it? Very true. Yes, I got a video camcorder from work. That it is in HD. It's just not in 4K. But that's better than not having a video camera. I know that as soon as I get more money, I will implement to get memory cards for it. I probably might get like a grand total of 512 gigabytes, because that's all that it can hold, and I'm okay with that. Now, in terms of like really using it, I really haven't yet. But I will once I get that, which is the HD memory cards and the microphone that I can plug it into. And I think that I will implement it in the fact that I might film like random like nature scenes within nature. Every so often when I'll throw like a seminar, I'll record that using, the camera, and that's about it. I mean, I don't think that I would be making like, films of full length using that, but we'll just see, Question number 9. Kim, knowing that you have been a podcaster for 5 years and have 5 seasons with it, what keeps you going with it? That goes back to the question that we probably had earlier about when you know it's the end. I feel like what keeps me going is that, I'm motivated to challenge myself every day when it comes to my podcasting, because I want to do something to make it better every time. And I don't usually shoot my shot the same way in that respect. And I think that for being there for 5 years and having 5 seasons, I feel like I'm doing something right. And I feel also like I have a lot to offer, a lot to, to prove to myself, and a lot of things to discuss using this platform. And I think that it's incredible. I look back at it and I say to myself, man, look at that guy from the beginning stages of that time, trying to, record a podcast and have a good time with it, only for it to not really result in the way that, you wanted to. But you're still enjoying it because you realize, that's how much love that you have for it. And I think that's what keeps me going at best. I think that's the one thing where I'm like, yeah, I love it and I want to keep going with it. And because I've been doing it for so long and nobody's really said anything, I'm assuming that's a good thing. So, yeah. All right. Last question, and then we're out of here. Got some footage from another episode here. Last question asks, Kim, what are you looking forward to this summer? Yeah, wow. That's a good question. There's a lot that I'm looking forward to this summer, because this summer has brought out a lot of opportunity, and I think it's incredible that I have that opportunity. i.e., this summer I'm going to be acting in a film called Lights, Camera, Cap'n, a filmmaking adventure that stars Romel Davis, who is the son of Romel Xavier Morales, in an all-star cast. I'm really looking forward to portraying a different type of role, and in terms of acting, and the fact that I will help to be a stunt coordinator and a fight choreographer for that film. So I'm really excited about that. And whenever that happens, where I'm on the set acting as my character, I look forward to that. I also look forward to probably, again, I threw like a seminar, and I'm thinking about throwing one more for the road for the summer. And I hope that I'm able to make that happen. That would be great. And that's another thing that I'm looking forward to. And before the summer's up, I have a friend. Her name is Angela. And we had said that, we're going one day before the summer's over, we're going to plan to take a cool road trip and explore the U.S. in that respect and have a good time with it, which to me, I feel like, man, that would be incredible, just because of the fact that I have not had an opportunity to take a vacation during the summer in, like, God knows how long, but I'm looking forward to it because it's like now, it gives me a reason to have a vacation and to enjoy it with a good friend of mine, Now, whatever happens in that vacation, I don't know, like whether if we're just, if we're going to Philadelphia, if we're going to Ocean City, if we're going to, Rehoboth Beach or whatever, that is yet to be determined. But I'm pretty sure with my friend Angela, she's a cool person, and we're just going to have fun. We're going to enjoy life. We're just going to, do whatever it is that we want to do, and that's that. And I look forward to it. Like, I think it's going to be a great moment, and hopefully, hopefully this summer will be a good summer to remember. And this will be a summer where I'm like, for the first time in a while, I actually had a regular, typical American summer where I was able to enjoy my summer. And I was able to do really cool things, So, yeah, that's about it. And that being said, that's all she wrote. Pretty glad that I was able to take care of that and have a blast with it and to answer questions. Again, I'm really disappointed that the sheet was just only questions, but it didn't name the people who asked the questions and specify where they're from. But, I'd rather do something than nothing. So, if that's the case, I'm pretty happy, you know what I mean? I'm really happy. So let's go ahead and close it out. Ladies and gentlemen, we're on a lot of social media pages. You can find me on Facebook. Just go into the search box and type in the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience, and you'll find me there. I'm also on Twitter, now known as X, and on Instagram on my handle at TKHPC Experience, all in one word, lowercase letters. You can follow me and I will follow you back. We are on 6 podcasting platforms, such as Spotify, Apple Podcast, Amazon Music, YouTube Music, Audible, and iHeartRadio. Now, please like, follow, and subscribe to the podcast on all of those podcasting platforms. And do me a solid favor. If you got Spotify, please give us a 5-star ranking. If you have Apple Podcast, which you can access it through any Apple, based device like an iPhone or iPad or, a MacBook, whatever. Please give us a 5-star ranking and a positive written review, because the more times that we have that for each of our podcasting platforms, then our podcast will be noticed in the front pages. And somebody could be like, yo, the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience, I heard about that. My good friend Diane told me about this. And she told me that it's something to, to listen to. It's worth your time. And that we should like, follow, and subscribe to it. Yes, please. And thank you. That'd be amazing. Now, real quick, if you guys can do us a favor and, pass on the word about our podcast, we definitely would appreciate that. Whether if you share it on your social media pages like Facebook or, Instagram or Twitter, now known as X, to even Snapchat or TikTok, we would appreciate that. Or tell people in person, people like your friends, your family members, your co-workers, your constituents. We would appreciate that. That is what we call brand awareness in the world of promotion. And sharing is caring. We do appreciate that. Also, lastly, if you want to be a guest on our podcast show, a guest host, if you have any questions on our Q&A session when I do my solo episodes, or if you just got constructive criticism, please email me at the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience at gmail.com. The way that it works is that on the subject box, just go ahead and write what the subject matter is. On the body of the email, just go ahead and write whatever it is that you need to write, air out your grievances, and then hit the send button. And then I would say like a day or two later, you will get a response, because I've gotten that notification that, hey, an email's come to you. I would be that person at that point to go ahead and respond back almost immediately, because I just don't like to have an email sent to me and not respond, So that's my take on that. Other than that, though, yeah, very grateful for everybody that has tuned in, shown love and support. And I think that we covered some different ground, but some good ground. And I'm really, really proud of that. So, guys, please be safe out there. Life is, it doesn't do us any good if you get yourself in any trouble or get engaged in any danger that might land you in a pine box and get buried 6 feet under. We don't want that to happen to you. We want you to be healthy. We want you to be happy. We want you to love life. We want you to conquer the world, because you deserve it. And anybody else that gives you negative, comments, you can tell them to go F themselves. You know what I mean? Put the middle finger right in front of their face and just say, you know what? I'm going to prove you wrong. So, that's that. So, that being said, I want to thank you, and just want to say how much I am appreciative of everybody out there listening to the podcast show, showing love and supporting it in the way that you do. And as long as you still want me to keep going with more content and talk about it and, put that on display, I'll keep on working hard for you guys, because you guys are a great motivator. That being said, ladies and gentlemen, we're out of here. For the one time, this is your boy, Kim Hoang, the Asian sensation. I'm the host with the most, the man with the plan, the guy that can bring the power within the right type of hour, the dude with the right attitude, and the guy so nice, he didn't have to do it twice. He did it once. Saying thank you, appreciate you, God bless you, and we'll check you out on another great episode of the Kim Hoang Podcast Experience. Y'all take care, be safe, be well, and we'll catch you up on the next one. All right, I'm out of here. Peace.